Are you ready for a life-transforming word from God? Philippians chapter 2, verse 12 and 13. Listen to the Apostle Paul. He said, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill his good purpose. Oh, I love this because this passage shows us that there are two aspects of being transformed inwardly. Number one, your part to play, and number two, God's part to play. Your part is to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. That means you're already saved. You can't work out salvation it didn't say work for salvation. It says work it out. That means you have to have salvation to work it out. But then God promises to do his part, which is to give you the willingness and inner transformation and outward ability to do God's will. See, so there's really two parts of working out our walk with Christ. Our part in obedience to God and God's part in working the inner transformation. I've seen two mistakes that Christians have made when it comes to trying to live out the Christian life. There's the hyper grace, which they practice licentiousness, which is they think they're not under the law. I'm not under the law. I'm under grace. I got news for you. You're under the law. You're under the law of Christ. Even the Apostle Paul, the Apostle of grace says, I'm under the law of Christ. Yet those in the hyper grace, they just don't believe there's any part to play, that God's going to do it all. He's not. Paul says, work it out. You've got to work it out. But then the other error is legalism. Legalism is when a person thinks they got to work to please God, to work to be justified, work to be made right in God's sight, when they don't even realize they're already made right in God's sight. You understand? And legalists are like the Pharisees, always adding rules that actually cause them to disobey God's law, or interpreting certain commands to make it so that they're in disobedience regardless of what they do. And this is what the Pharisees did, especially with the Sabbath. God made the Sabbath. Jesus said God made the Sabbath for us, not us for the Sabbath. Yet the Pharisees put so many rules and regulations to the Sabbath that the Jews hated the Sabbath instead of being happy with it. God gave the Sabbath to give men a day off, that workers couldn't be put under bondage by their employers to be forced to work 7 days out of the week. And he gave them a day of rest so they can go worship God, first of all, and to honor him and to have fun on that day. But the Pharisees put so many rules that everyone hated it. You know, I've been to Israel twice, and the most miserable day in Israel is the Sabbath. Number one, we can't go out and tour because that's breaking the Sabbath. You can't eat fresh food because you can only eat leftovers. You eat everything that was made the day before. In other words, they turned the Sabbath into a killjoy. And this is exactly what the Pharisees did. Paul is telling us, we got our part to play, but God also has his part. See, don't be like the woman who went and this salesperson said, this washing machine, it will do half your work for you. She said, well, I'll take two so I don't have to do anything. Well, how many of y'all know it didn't work that way? And that's the way some people are. I'll take two of those so God has to do everything. And then others, they don't even take the washing machine and they want to do everything to please God. When God says, I'll do my part to have you please me. So I urge you to follow Philippians 2, to start working out your salvation. Again, you have to have it to work it out. If I told somebody work out your marriage problems, that obviously means they're married. So it obviously means we're saved. So some of you've turned Christianity into a self-effort. I got to keep working and working, and when I work enough, I'll be saved. Wrong. You're already saved. What you got to do is work it out. And I'm telling you, God is going to work in you both to will and to do his good pleasure.